Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack. I'm a certified life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want you to know that no matter your season or circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life. And I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 30, entitled A Conversation with Alicia Hall. I first met Alicia about a year ago in a coaching group that we are part of, and most recently in the Latter-day Life Coach Directory, which we both belong to. And we were able to meet in person a couple of weeks ago at a retreat where life coaches that are LDS were able to meet together. And so it was so fun to meet her and some of the other coaches in person for the first time. And I believe that the message that Alicia has to share is a powerful one. So here's our conversation.
Thanks for having me. So I like to introduce myself differently than maybe most people do, but I have a reason for that and I'll get to it. So I am a believer in good things to come. I am a woman of faith. I am a compassionate forgiver. I am a daughter of God, and I am a whole human.
Wow.
And I like to introduce myself from that perspective because it took me a long time to figure out how I identify myself instead of a wife and a mother, all those things, a life coach. Well, yes, those are things that I am involved in my life. They're a part of my life, but they don't identify who I am. So I work with Latter-day Saints who are suffering in silence. They are believing that the experiences from their past define who they are. So I help them to redefine who they are, to learn to believe in themselves again and find their inner strength and power.
I love that so much. I think that is such a key piece. I often reflect on this, like, what's the first song we learned in primary?
I'm a child of God.
Right? Like that is the foundational piece to all of it. And I think especially as women, but I think as humans in general, we tend to identify ourselves as what we do and the roles we play. And even like the people I work with, right? Like older women in the mid-season of life, we kind of forget what our purpose is. We wonder what our purpose is. And then we think our purpose is what we do.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not what we do. It's why we do anything. And if we don't understand who we are or our identity, it's really hard to find our purpose. So I love that that's your focus. So who do you typically work with? They're Latter-day Saints, but is it more specific than that?
So yeah, I actually work with both male and female. I've had a few male clients and mostly female clients. I like to go speak to a group of women personally because I'm a woman. So I relate really well with them. And I understand that mentality of not feeling like you're doing enough, not feeling like you're enough in certain aspects of your life. And so that's something that I like to hone in on. And I like to speak about learning how to believe in yourself and create the awareness of the beliefs that you have and how you got those beliefs and then how you can change them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is so great. So, is that typically what your main focus is then, is just helping them rediscover who they are, or what do you work with them on?
That is my main focus. I have a coaching program called Always Enough, and it is a 9-lesson program, and it goes through the steps of creating the awareness of what you believe about yourself. And then it guides you through other areas of your life and learning to show up with more intention of who you want to be and how you can apply that in each area of your life so that you can go forward in creating the life that you want to have, that life that you desire to have. And it's regardless of whatever's going on around you. None of that impacts how you can show up in the world. And so that is the main focus that I put into my program, that they have the power to create whomever they want to be and how they want to show up without being reactive or allowing the things that happen around you to shake your faith and shake your foundation of who you are, that you can still show up from that place in confidence.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. I love it. It's so needed. So my question is then, how did you come to coaching? How did you come to that this is what you wanted to share and focus on?
Yeah, I love this story, to be honest with you. It was like a bittersweet. So I was the kind of person who was stuck in believing things like opinions of other people about me, the things that they would say or how I was treated. I did come from an abusive marriage. My first marriage was not a great marriage. A lot of narcissistic abuse, and I had 2 kids with him. So when you divorce a narcissist with 2 kids, you never actually divorce them. And I've
Yeah.
learned a lot through the struggles that I've had and continue to have, to be honest with you. But I was stuck in the belief that this was my life and it was my job just to endure it. But I always longed and wished for something more. I'm like, how can this be? Like, how do I find joy in this? And I remember sitting in my therapist's office, because I've done several years of therapy, to try to, clean up my mindset. And he asked me the question after listing out all the good things in my life. He's like, why can't you just believe that you are enough? And I remember responding back and I said, how can I? Look at all the evidence that I have from my life. Look at everything that's happened in the way that I was treated. Like, how can I believe that I am enough? And he's like, but you're forgetting what you have. And I said, I know. I don't know how to change this perspective. And that is when it's kind of funny. My sister-in-law, going into becoming a therapist, I was talking with her and telling her, man, I feel like I need therapy every single day of my life. And she said, well, why don't you try a life coach? And I said, what is that? And she said, well, I don't know, somebody who can help you with your mindset every day, basically, is what she said. And she actually pointed me to Jody Moore life coaching. And I just listened to her podcast for an entire year. And I discovered that she has a sister that does couples coaching, because I said, if I'm going to really take on this new mindset concept, this new model and tool, then I need my husband to be on board. And so he was all for it. He's such a sweet man. He did couples coaching with me. And through that process of learning the model and learning those mindset tools, managing my emotions, all those things, it really was that missing piece for me to recognize where my power really lies. That it's not, my agency isn't about just my actions I take, but it really comes down to the thoughts and the beliefs that I have about myself. And when I can own up to that, then that is where my true power comes from. And it was seriously life-changing for me to adapt these tools into my beliefs and into my life so that I could finally find that freedom from that ball and chain that I felt like I was stuck to, in believing the manipulation and mind games and the entrapment that I was dealing with from my ex-husband all the time.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I don't think you said her name, but it's
Oh,
Natalie.
I'm sorry, Natalie Clay.
Right.
Yes.
Natalie Clay. I love her too.
She's
She
the
does.
best couples coach.
Yeah, she is a great couples coach. And it's so fun to watch her coach couples.
Yes. Oh, yes.
She's masterful. And I always wondered, like, how do you coach couples together? Because they are coming at it from a totally
Yes.
different perspective and different mindset. And so to watch her do that is pretty amazing. She's pretty masterful at it. So that is awesome. That is awesome. So then once you learned those tools, you decided, I got to do this.
I knew that this is what I needed to do. Like, it was you have got to help people with this.
Yeah.
And so I did. I signed up for CCP and have been a coach for a year and a half.
I think that's such an interesting thing, especially in what you're talking about, is just this idea of creating something different than what you knew.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of comes down to the story that you're telling about your life.
Yeah.
And I can look back and point out, like, if I really want to, like all the negative things that, oh, but this happened and this happened, and just really put myself in this victim mentality, where I don't know, and even blame myself for, oh, if I just didn't marry him, or
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all these things, right?
Yeah.
But what I like to remind my clients and what I take them through in my program is, let's go back to before you got here. Like, you weren't just nothing and then you came into this world and the world decided how you are. It's not how it works. Like, you have an identity before you're even sent here. And I like to believe that our all-knowing and our all-loving Heavenly Father knew exactly what we would go through in this life, and He has prepared us for everything we would go through. And that all of these experiences that we go through, the hard, the painful, what have you, is an opportunity for Him to show us what we are truly capable of if we allow Him to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I've actually kind of reframed the way I think of joy. And I've said this before on here, but my idea of joy is what comes after the hard and the good. Like
Yeah.
the combination of the opposites, right? Like I just think, you know, we know that we've come to earth to experience opposition, but I think sometimes we want to be selective in that opposition. Want to
Right.
dictate what that looks like. But I reflect on my own life, like when do I reach for the savior?
Mhm.
When do I try to connect with God the most? Right? We have our daily practices, but in those moments where there is some genuine pain, right? We reach out to God,
Yeah.
and then we go through these hard things and we are on the other side of it and it feels so good, right? But it wouldn't feel so good had we not gone through the hard,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like, that's joy.
Hmm.
Joy kind of to me encompasses embracing the hard, but relishing in the good, right? Like
Right.
just embracing all of it is where we find joy.
No, I love that.
Again, I think coming back to this idea of identity, if we lose sight of who we are and whose we are, it's hard to move forward in our life from an intentional, deliberate place,
Yes.
right?
And who was it that said, I don't remember if it was Uchtdorf or one of the apostles. It's a very famous quote on, the joy we feel has nothing to do with the circumstances of our lives,
Yeah,
but
that's
everything
that's
to do with the focus of our lives.
yes, 100%. That is like, I think one of the most quoted quotes that I've
Right.
seen, but I actually have it hanging up, and it's the joy we feel has little to do with the circumstances of our lives and everything to do with the focus of our lives.
Perfect.
And again, like we're going to find what we focus on.
Hmm.
And in that story that you shared, I love that where your therapist said, like, look at all you have. You were so focused on what was wrong or what was missing. And I think that's so normal. I think that's a very human thing to do. We all find ourselves doing that when we aren't intentional, and we aren't always intentional.
Oh, no, we live on autopilot
We
most of
just
the
do.
time.
Our brain operates that way. It just, yeah. If we had to like think intentionally about every single thing we did in a day, we'd be worn out. so,
Yeah. But
so
that is the beauty of awareness, Jill, is
yeah,
when you have the awareness of what beliefs that you are choosing to believe and understanding that they're completely optional,
yeah,
then you can learn how to become intentional. You can
yes,
sort of let go of that tight grip on, no, this is my truth. I'm just not good enough.
yeah,
You'll find the evidence for it 100%. But
mm,
we don't often know, and what I didn't know was that I could look for the opposite is true as well. And I
yeah,
could loosen that grip of what else is true and
mm,
recognize, huh, you know what? I am enough. I really am.
Yeah, I love that phrase. What else is true? It does open us up to other possibilities and also invites us to acceptance,
Yes.
like being accepting of ourselves of where we are, but opening ourselves up to possibility
Yeah.
with
And
this.
accepting that maybe everything that's happened really was meant to be part of my life story. It's part of
Mhm.
my growth, part of my progression that's going to get me where I want to be.
Yeah, yeah. Someone I was listening to, and I wish I could remember now, pinpoint it. It was a podcast, a Come Follow Me podcast. But they were talking about just this idea of the covenant path. And sometimes we have times in our lives when we kind of weave off of the covenant path, or what hard things come and it kind of hinders us on our path, or whatever it may
Mhm.
be. But what they referenced was we're in a covenant story.
Oh, I love that.
And I loved that idea because I think that can remove the idea of needing to be a certain way to be faithful and true and just keep
Mhm.
moving forward. And this idea of like we move along in our story, and sometimes that story is over here and over there, includes challenging things. It's this idea that just because we're faithful and we're trying to do things doesn't mean we're not going to have this opposition. Hard things happen to good people. But
Right.
realize and can embrace that no, all of this is part of our story. Like you were saying, I loved that. It's like this is part of the journey, the story. This is what's going to make us who we are meant to be. How do we want to tell our story? We
Yes.
want that to be. We get to write it.
Yeah. And then it doesn't
The
feel so
author.
final,
Yeah.
especially the things that are outside of your control. You're like, I
Right.
still get to choose how I want to view this.
Yes. And when you think of a story too, like there's supporting characters, there's characters that
Yes.
you kind of want to write out of the story, or
Sometimes you need to.
right. We can practice our creative writing skills. Writing this story. But yeah, I like that. And I love the point you made about awareness, right? Like awareness is such a powerful tool, and it doesn't stop with awareness. Awareness just opens the door,
Hmm.
and we have to move into acceptance and compassion
Yes.
as we move to the next part of our story.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the only way to move through it.
Yeah. It's the only way. I totally agree. So when you work with your clients, what do you find? And we may have addressed it already, but I'd love to hear, is there one particular area that your clients that you find kind of a reoccurring struggle? And then do you have one little nugget that you could share if somebody's listening is kind of struggling with that same thing?
Yeah, so a few come to mind, but I think the one that I'm seeing the most in a lot of my clients is the belief that it's not supposed to look this way. It wasn't supposed to be this way. And when you're looking at your life and what's happened, either, your children have fallen away from the church, or just things have just gone a different direction you weren't expected, we sometimes compare ourselves to other people who are in a different story than ours. And we sometimes get caught up in the idea of what the ideal Latter-day Saint life should look like,
Mhm.
um, going through divorce, or just anything that just doesn't fit that normal idea or that ideal. And when we get caught up there, then we're in a place of judgment and shame. And that keeps us stuck. It keeps us from growing. It keeps us from being able to see what else is possible for us and what else is true. And so a tip that I like to give, and you pretty much hit it, Jill, is to allow and hold space for self-compassion in those moments. And that's going to look like, of course, I feel this way. Of course, this is hard for me. I wasn't expecting this. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to look like really meeting yourself where you're at, taking a deep breath. And the other thing I would like to contribute with that is learning to be still. Because when you are in this place of it shouldn't be this way, it's not supposed to look like this, what went wrong, you're looking for all the things that went wrong, then you're trying to hurry and fix it. And
Mm-hmm.
your mind is spiraling and busying and all the things that have gone wrong and what's going to go wrong next. And if you can just take a moment, like a meditated type moment where you just practice silencing the mind and being still, kind of like a prayer, or just focus on some breathing. Silence the mind, because when you can get to that place for yourself, that's where the spirit can meet you. That's where the atonement of Christ will meet you. And you will figure out how to get to that place of compassion, because that's what the Savior offers for every single one of us. And he can show you what it is that you need in this moment, instead of trying to fix what you think needs fixing. But he can show you, you're exactly where I need you to be right now. Just focus on healing right now, or just focus on taking time to feel what you need to feel through this. Just take time to grieve through this.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most powerful thing that you can do in the healing process. And when you can do that, then you're going to see more clearly the next step forward. And that's really all it is. It's not a hurry and fix everything. It's just, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that is so beautiful. I think that awareness and feeling, having compassion does invite the spirit. It allows us to hear the spirit, because when we are living, either anxious or fearful, and we know that's because we're worrying about our past or the future, aren't present. And so I think what you're saying is, yeah, just allowing yourself to be present in the moment where
Mhm.
you are, like in the messy middle.
Yes.
Like just pause there and create space for the Savior and for the Spirit. I think that's so beautiful. And again, I think that most of us, right, we learn this in the beginning of coaching, but most of the time we do the things we do because we don't want to feel uncomfortable. It
Right.
really is about avoiding feeling bad or feeling good. We want to feel good. And so oftentimes when we're in that messy middle and we're trying to fix something, it's because we don't want to feel the painful things that we're feeling. But if we will allow ourselves to feel those things and have compassion for ourselves, and like you said, just like, it makes sense that you feel this, it's okay. If we pause and we can just invite that in and process that emotion, just be with it, that's when we can access that inspiration and that revelation for ourselves, because we've removed the highly elevated emotional state we're in, and we can just bring it down and just open that communication with God. So I think that's such a beautiful tool, and it doesn't have to take long, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, even like 3 breaths, right? As simple as breathing deep 3 times.
Yeah,
Three.
you can do it while you're driving, while
Yeah,
you're doing the dishes. You're just focusing in on your breathing, or focus in directly on like washing the dishes. Oh, I'm just scrubbing this one area. Like it's
yeah,
just
right. We're not thinking about,
focusing your mind.
yeah, we're not thinking about the things that we think are broken or that we need to fix. We just are. And I think there's beauty in that space, and there's healing in that space. So I
Absolutely.
love that suggestion. That's beautiful. So where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram, Alicia Hall Coaching. I'm also on Facebook, Alicia Hall Coaching. And my website is aliciahallcoaching.com.
Okay, pretty easy.
Yes.
Direction. People can find you. Awesome. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time and just getting a chance to talk about all things coaching and things that we've learned that have helped us that we want to share with other people. So I think that you shared some really good information that will help those that are listening. So thank you so much for your time, Alicia.
Thank you, Jill.
I'm glad you've been here. All right.
Me too.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, I would love it if you would share it with your friends and family and leave me a rating and review. If you'd like to learn more about what life coaching is, please schedule a free discovery call with me where we can work together through something that's causing you a problem. Just go to my website, seasons-coaching.com, and you can also find information about my Seasons of Joy one-on-one coaching program and my Seasons of Joy community. Have a joyful week, and I'll see you next time.